Hey friends, it's Awkwardly Random with Cinthya and Michelle, where we talk about random topics.
Anything and everything awkward is on the table, so let's dive right in.
Hey everybody, it's Cinthya.
And it's Michelle. Welcome back to another episode of
Awkwardly Random with Cinthya and Michelle. Welcome back to another episode, y'all. We have two very special guests, returning guests.
Yep. We're excited to have you.
Yes, we're very excited to have you. Hi, Rebe, my roommate.
Hello.
And friend and cousin. Yes. Hi, Jasmin, my girlfriend and best friend.
We miss you. Happy to have you. Thank you for giving us your time.
Yeah, for real.
Having us. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, cool. This is Jasmin. This is your third time being here, right?
Is it? I don't know.
Yeah, third time.
Yep. We did the love one, part one and part two.
Yep, and then this.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And Rebe, you were our very first guest. I think we mentioned last time too.
I think this is Rebe's fourth time.
No?
Fourth time.
Fourth time.
Yeah.
Yay! We're so happy to have y'all both back.
Woo! All right, let's jump into the awkwardly random question. So, do you want to ask it or should I?
Yeah, I can ask it since I quickly.
Okay,
well, I kind of edited it. Okay, so the question for today is: if you had the chance, let me look at this. If you had the opportunity to act in a movie, which movie would it be? And it could be, you could be the starring role or not, and it could be a specific movie that's already out or one that you would like to see yourself in, or like a specific genre that you want to see yourself in. It's open to interpretation. Jasmin, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go first. Okay, so I already know my answers. I have a few movies that I would want to do. The first one is In the Time of the Butterflies. When I was in acting class back in college, I actually did a monologue. I acted out a monologue that I completely interpreted for the one of the sisters of that movie. And it would be really cool to actually star in the movie. And also if I could star with Salma Hayek.
Well, Hayek, yeah, you already thought about who would be your co-star.
Yeah, well, she was the star in that movie. And then that's one. But then a genre that I would just love to do is comedy. I love comedy. I'm really good at comedy and just improvising and things like that. So any comedy thing I would love to do.
Yeah.
Nice.
What about you, Rebe?
Yeah, what about you?
Let us know.
Yes.
I already have an idea.
You have an idea, right?
This girl will probably do some type of romance.
Yes.
A rom-com.
Nice.
No. You would do a telenovela.
I can see you do a rom-com.
Yeah, so my genre would be rom-com for sure. I am a helpless romantic. I live vicariously through these rom-coms, so it would be nice to participate in those, but obviously like a meaningful story. The light and fluffy ones are good too, but I would definitely do maybe like a Nicholas Sparks movie based True Connection, but maybe a little bit deeper, but definitely rom-com for me. And I don't know what movie I would act in. I think just that genre. Like Jasmin said, probably a telenovela might be top tier up there too. I would do that, but I would love to have been an actress or like been that outgoing, I did like musicals and like school, and well, not necessarily school, but like church confirmation. There was like always an annual like Bible story musical that we'd be a part of, so that's what I did. But it'd be cool. I do like was it improv and like acting or like role playing, so that's fun, a creative side. But your girl rom-com over here.
I knew it.
Nice. What about you?
Okay, you want me to go or you want to go?
You can go, it's fine.
I probably do. Okay, so last night, Jasmin and I watched Avatar, and I had never seen that movie, but it just reminded me of like how badass Michelle Rodriguez is. And she was in the Fast and the Furious franchise and all that, and I would like to be like that badass girl in the movies that like is riding motorcycles and jumping off buildings and fighting the bad guys. Like I would want to be in some type of action movie, whether it's regarding superheroes or not. I don't know. We'll see. Something like that.
Yeah.
We'll see, as if I'm gonna do it.
I was thinking Marvel.
You can.
For you.
Yeah, I guess I could.
I see
Yeah,
that.
Marvel. I would do Marvel. Yeah, something like that.
Nice.
Something actiony.
Nice. I can see that.
Okay, what about you, Mish?
I would not ever do a movie. I don't have it in me. I don't know how to act. I don't think I would enjoy it. I would crawl in a ball and I would just not be able to say anything. I would just stutter the whole time. But I think I would really like to do a comedy, like more like think Paul Rudd / Ryan Reynolds, like just that kind of humor. I think I would fit into that. Or like a musical, but just like a dancing part of it. Like no singing, but just like in a musical, maybe like a background dancer. But yeah, that's what I
could see you doing that.
Mm-hmm.
Wait, how do you know you can't act?
I don't know. I feel like even being on camera right now, like every single time I get anxious and like nervous and I don't know. I can't.
Well, Michelle, it said all the best actresses always get nervous before they perform. So
yeah,
just saying, you might be one of the best and not know it.
Maybe not. I do not want to find out.
Career change.
No. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Well, we all had pretty different answers ish. That's cool.
Good group. Diverse.
I would watch your movies. Just let me know if you ever.
I would watch everyone's movies.
I will.
If you want to be an actress, I will support you.
Me too. I will go to the premiere if you invite me, and I will pay to watch your movies. Mm-hmm. Yes.
Let's go.
Okay. Thank y'all for playing with us that little awkwardly random question game. We've been doing this for a while now, the awkwardly questions, so it's cool. I like it.
I have one more question.
Oh, go for it.
What's your question?
Did everyone listen to the Bad Bunny album?
I did.
Not all of it.
No, Cynthia made me listen to like the first 3 songs, and then I was like, all right, next
topic for discussion later.
Hey, okay.
I like it.
You listen to the whole thing, Michelle?
Well, yeah, I did. I really liked their like features with like Bomba Stereo and like the Marias, I think.
Yeah,
so cool, so different. The collabs are really good. What's that one song where they name all the like con la Nicole and
Titi me preguntó.
Yeah, that song is really good. It's like super catchy. I liked it
last night.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I'm surprised by like how many catchy good songs came out of that.
I feel like he didn't stick to just reggaeton in this album. There was like some indie, some rock. There was some like house in there.
Merengue.
Yeah.
I was like, I feel like I was back in the island. Like, hold on.
That was the first one I had to show Jasmine because I knew she was gonna like that one.
I was like, this reminds me of the clubs.
Yeah.
Anywho, just cultural phenomenon happening right now. Something like Bad Bunny.
Yeah.
But he's a very, very rich man.
Charging insane amounts for his concerts.
Those streams for sure.
Yeah. All right. Let's get into the main topics. We have 2 main topics. Well, yeah, 2 main topics. We're gonna first dive into a little bit into the Supreme Court draft that was leaked.
So basically, I think it was last week, Monday, it was leaked. What was leaked was the decision in Planned Parenthood versus Casey, which is a case that the U.S. Supreme Court was taking into consideration. There were oral arguments on that case in December. And so once that oral argument was made, what usually happens is justices take a vote on what they think or how they should decide a case. And then justices and their law clerks would like draft these opinions based off of the votes. But what was leaked isn't actually the official decision of Planned Parenthood versus Casey. It's just preliminary what they think, but most people think that this is what's going to happen, which what's going to happen is the overturning of Roe versus Wade, which has basically, I don't know when the decision was made. It was like 1970 something, where 73 nice, where the US Supreme Court basically allowed people to get abortions
at a federal level.
At a federal level, yes. Yeah. So by overturning Roe v. Wade, basically what it will do is that it will give the power up to the states. So each state will create or have its own law regarding abortion, and how people can either do it or not do it in their states. And so that's what is essentially happening. But yeah, what do y'all think about the leak, and what do y'all think about like reproductive rights in general? And I don't know, whatever opinion you want to give.
So I think that it was a calculated leak, in my opinion. We'll talk about that a little bit later, but I think it was calculated. I think that we are going back years in our country, unfortunately. Mm-hmm. And this is damaging to us as women for reproductive health rights. I think it is more, my opinion is that it is all about economy and oppressing those disproportionately Black and Brown communities, and just continuing this cycle of oppression for them, that, not being able to have access to this reproductive health decision, pro-choice, it's just very disheartening and damaging. And at a federal level, like not having that protection is huge. Luckily, we're in the state of Illinois that is protected at a state level. And I believe will continue to be protected just because we have great advocacy and great health centers and just what's going on. But I do think, my opinion is that was a calculated leak to stir the pot and just impact, whatever's happening right now. And it's all about the economy and oppressing.
Yeah. When you said
policing bodies, yeah, exactly.
When you say calculated, what do you mean? Like, who do you think leaked it? Like, based off of what you think, then?
You were saying the clerks, right? The office clerks. Whoever's on, clerk. Yeah, whoever's on.
Was it a court clerk? Did they? Because I know Chief Justice Roberts said that this was a legitimate, like, drafted opinion, and that they were going to do an investigation. Mm-hmm. But there isn't really else that was given as to who leaked it. So I don't know. These are all like speculations, right? But
I read that it was a court clerk, though. So like it was confirmed that it was a court clerk.
I don't know. I saw the article on Politico, right?
That's where it was first leaked.
Yeah, first leaked. Mm. But I mean, the Supreme Court, although it's very, reserved, secretive, like we don't know about these decisions, but they're I get it. They're defending the Constitution and our rights. And the separation between state, church and state, or state and federal too, just giving autonomy to the states, that's part of the reason potentially that they have, or what they're deciding on, right? I get it, but I think it's all calculated. Like everything political is calculated. I don't know. I don't know how best to describe it further, but
yeah. The reason I was asking you, because people I just like hearing people's theories as to like who leaked it. So people are like, oh, it's like the justices who were appointed by a Republican president, or like it's Sonia Sotomayor, or it's like her law clerk because they're pro whatever. Like, just I was reading people's different speculations, and I was just interested to hear like what part of it, because I feel like there's arguments to make for either side as to why it would be leaked. So I was just, that's why I was interested in asking you that.
Yeah. But Jasmin, I don't know. Yeah.
Oh, yeah. I don't know like who leaked it, obviously. You said it was a law clerk. I feel that obviously it was done on purpose, and whether it was to stir the pot or to expose the pot, I don't know. I don't know that person's intentions behind doing it, but they definitely stirred some shit up. Yeah. Whether, and regardless if whether or not it would have been leaked, if that decision, let's say that decision would have been made, that would have stirred the pot anyway, and that would have started a lot more, I think, if it was like a final decision. I wanted to touch, because when like Rebe, when you were saying the separation between church and state, I always hear that, and like I'm like, okay, I understand the separation between church and state, and that they want to what is it called, like defend the Constitution, but I feel like they're super hypocritical in that, because when they're saying, if they're going to overturn, if that's what they decide to do, then that's from what I hear, right, it's a religious point of view that they're doing it from. Like it's like, well, religion is what they're saying, their backbone, and God would want, you have to save all the lives, which I understand. If that's what you believe, that's fine, but I feel like that is super hypocritical if you want to separate, because I grew up learning about separation of church and state, but as I get older, I said, where is the separation? Because I worked at a bank, and even on the dollar bills, on every bill, it's "In God We Trust." Right. So I'm like, how is that a separation of state and church? That's not at all. Like, God is included in everything. And that's fine if that's what we're about, but claim it instead of being hypocritical. So for me, this is exposing the hypocrisy that people in the Supreme Court have. And I don't care what you believe, but just own it, instead of saying, no, this is not how I feel. Like, we're trying to separate the church and state, but if it's not pro-life, it's what? Pro-choice. No. What is it? Pro-choice. Yeah. People are like, well, I'm pro-life, but they were like, I believe in the separation of church and state. And I'm like, well, no, like, what's your backbone of being pro-life? If it's not religion, and unless you're going to adopt the babies, then what is your backbone on it? But I just want to understand why people do that. And I don't really understand it, because to me, it's just all hypocrisy. Yeah. And it really gets on my nerves. Yeah. But, I mean, I'm not a Supreme Court justice.
It's what Rev is saying. It's like oppression, right? They're trying to uphold a patriarchal society, right? A misogynistic society, a racist society, homophobic society. I mean, this is about abortion specifically, but the basis of this, as I was reading about it, is that abortion is not explicitly stated in the Constitution, although it does fall within the 14th Amendment, right? It's protected by the due process clause, I think, in the 14th Amendment. But we also have other rights that fall under that protection of the 14th Amendment that are also not explicitly in the Constitution, like same-sex marriage, right to contraception, things like that. And so, although this is just about specifically abortion, I'm kind of terrified as to what this is going to mean for other rights, and if this actually becomes an official ruling. And I feel like there's a pretty high chance that this will become official, because 5 out of the 9 judges are conservative and currently support this draft opinion. And if it does become an official ruling, right, like Michelle said, they're going to leave it up to the states. Okay, well, about half of the states are already like pretty keen on banning abortion.
Yeah, like all red. If you look at
ready
map
for it, they're like, come on, like let us do it now, right? They would have done it yesterday if they could. And it's what's scary too is that I don't know if there's anything really stopping them from banning abortion at any and all stages of pregnancy. So I don't know. I'm pro-choice, and I believe in the individual right. It's the person who is pregnant. It's their decision at the end of the day whether to abort or not. That's my opinion. Absolutely. So
I agree. I second.
Yeah.
Cynthia, real quick, what you were saying about how the map, everyone's like they're angry with that. People are like, oh, well, we're doing this for the good of America. Well, then fucking take a vote. It's 9 people that are ruling everything. If you're doing it for the good of America, have America vote. So I feel that's also hypocrisy.
Yeah. What are your thoughts on, okay, so the Supreme Court is supposed to be making these rules or whatever, these rulings based on principle and based on the Constitution, right? Which it was a document written by white men, right? Back when
for white men.
Yeah, like 200
by
years
white
ago.
men for white men and no one else.
Right, when women and people of color were not deemed as human beings back then. Like, why are we, in my opinion, right? This is again my opinion. Why are, like, rules are created, rules can be changed. I'm not sure why. Actually, I do know why. Again, it's about power and greed and repression. But like, they did this test, this historical test, to see like if abortion is part of is deeply rooted in American tradition, and they're saying it's not, because it's not explicitly in the Constitution.
Yeah,
so
that's their legal argument.
Right, that's the legal argument behind it. And I'm like, this document was, like you said, about 200 years ago. Like,
and isn't slavery
what are we doing
in tradition?
Right,
exactly.
Right.
Yeah, exactly.
So what are these people talking about? Kick them out.
Yeah, that's what people are afraid of, is that, I agree with everyone, obviously pro-choice. I think it is super alarming if this decision goes forward. It's super alarming if states have the right to do this. And also, I'm kind of glad whoever leaked it, to be honest.
Yeah.
I think what Jasmin said is super hypocritical of them, talking about like the invasion of privacy of the court, but then not really respecting like people who want to have abortions right to privacy and right to choose. So I think that's super hypocritical as well. I just think it's alarming. It's very dangerous if it happens. A lot of people are not going to have access to healthcare and just all kinds of reproductive, like, health that they need, healthcare. Red states like Wisconsin, like where we're from, like not looking great. So and like this can definitely boil down to other amendments that aren't explicitly in the Constitution, and I think that's what people are also concerned about. This is not looking great.
And like, it's not okay, so it's gonna be legally banned if this becomes an official thing, but it's not actually gonna stop abortions. It's just gonna create more unsafe abortions, right? People are gonna look to like, they're going to go to places where it's not they're not in safe conditions, right?
Under the table,
under the table, or like do it on their own, or drive or fly to another state. It just, I'm scared that this is going to lead to more deaths of pregnant individuals. And so yes, it is damaging, it's dangerous, it's alarming, it's very scary.
And
it's
so
what country we're moving to, y'all?
The legal argument behind it, like, it doesn't make sense. Like, they're trying so hard to make it make sense. But they're looking at it at very, like, from an originalist point of view, and just trying to look at the text argument, which people do in, like, when I was in law school, or when people try to make arguments. But it's just like, we're living in 2022, like.
So Michelle, do you understand, like, when you're reading about it, do you understand all the jargon that they're using? Because I mean, you're a law student and you work in a law firm, correct?
I'm not a law student anymore. I graduated with my JD, but I work at a nonprofit where I do immigration work.
Okay. So do you understand, like, when you read something that's, obviously I know you're in immigration, but when you read something like this and you read about it, do you understand what they're saying? Because sometimes I'll read it and I'm like, I don't know what the fuck this is saying. But you who have an education, do you actually understand what they're saying? Or is it all kind of like mumbo jumbo to you too?
In law school, they teach you how to read an opinion. So like, they teach you like the structure of it, what to look for, like the legal analysis. Obviously some words I'm not going to know all of them, but I mean, people can look it up, and I mean, everybody can read the opinion. It's online now, or the drafted opinion. And if you don't understand it, there's a lot of articles that kind of break it down.
Okay.
What could they do from like a legal standpoint, from like the government? Like, could you like add more justices, like pack the court? Like, you know what I mean? Like what
you could, I mean,
done.
I really want to get into it, but there are things that our leaders can do in this country as politicians and they're not doing.
Okay.
But yeah.
Yeah, I'm just wondering if anything can be done.
I mean, it's all about the vote too, right? Who we elect as our leaders,
right.
Who those leaders put into office, who we put as a president,
and holding those leaders accountable.
Right.
Yeah, because those leaders aren't doing anything. Like
right.
Biden, like Congress people, like they could be doing stuff and they're not, if we're going to be honest. Like, and yes, we can vote, but like if the people who we do vote aren't doing anything, it's not really, I don't know. I just think that yes, that's a good thing to do, but also like people in these positions have to actually do something for the people that they represent. So yeah, that's all I got to say. I didn't want to talk about it too much because then I'd go on a rant, but
no, it's all good.
Move on.
It's important stuff to talk about, but we appreciate y'all giving us your input. For those of y'all listening to this episode, let us know what you think in the comments. Send us a message. We would love to hear your thoughts and perspective on this as well.
The follow button, wherever that is.
Follow. Let us know what you think.
Add a follow button to the screen.
I know.
Yeah, let us know. Okay.
What you think?
So we're gonna get into the next topic. So Michelle and I have talked about opinions. What are they? Right. We've gotten a little bit, we want to talk a little bit more about it and hear other people's perspective, because Michelle and I did a previous episode on this, which you can go back to and check it out if you haven't. But it's just her and I, right? And Michelle, you and I tend to agree on a lot of things. So
yeah,
we really
we
appreciate hearing other perspectives. So let's just start off by our first question. Are you, as an individual, entitled to your opinion?
Yes.
Yes, but to an extent.
Oh, elaborate.
I feel like, yes, you're entitled to your opinion. However, if your opinion hurts others, if you're let's say, when the pandemic started, that the George Floyd and things like that, and people were saying their opinion and, oh, Black lives don't matter, blue lives matter, all lives matter, all this bullshit, and I'm like, okay, wait a minute. That's like, I understand what you think, but at the same time, your opinion is hurting other people. So I feel like, yes, you're entitled to your opinion, but you should also think if your opinion hurts other people. But I guess you're entitled to it. But I mean,
that's
wrong. Like, I don't know, it's wrong.
I know.
I think, to elaborate further, I said, yes, you're entitled to have an opinion. I think we're going to talk about next, like a couple scenarios, like when that may be okay or not okay, to Jasmin's point. But us as individuals, as humans, what makes us unique, we have this beautiful mind, we have our opinions that may be rooted in nature or nurture too. All of our behaviors are learned, right? Cinthia works with kids, like she knows, like top notch, everything that you do, we learn from our parents or from the environment that we were raised from. We could probably adapt over time and form different opinions than what we have. For example,
they can change.
My mother grew up in a Republican household. She is now extremely liberal. Like, she is like number one liberal for sure. So like totally her experiences have changed. Same, I don't have the same opinions as my parents. We probably relate. But we could have discussions or opinions, like Jasmin was saying, George Floyd, on race, economy, poverty, religion, all of that stuff. We are entitled to those opinions. And though it's about having a healthy dialogue or discussion and not forcing maybe your opinion on someone else or projecting that is correct. And this is where kind of the pro-life, pro-choice thing is part of that discussion too, or like a strong opinion that people have, or believing in God, like you have to believe in God, or not. And so, there's all these like fundamental opinions that people have that are projected not incorrectly, but negatively, that is hurtful or damaging. And so that's where we have to be cautious, in my opinion. I may have my different opinions about certain things, and Cinthia and I have a healthy like roommate cousin family relationship that we can talk about it, but we don't like project that on each other out of respect and understanding. that also takes emotional intelligence to do that, if that makes sense too. You have to be able to know how to navigate those situations or discussions, and not all Americans have that. And we see that clearly in discussions or riots. But I do believe we are entitled to our opinions, and though respectfully engaging in dialogue in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone has opinions, regardless of, you can't control people. So inherent, like, just with that thought of mind, yes, I would say, yeah, just generally people are entitled to their opinion. But I agree with what both of you are saying, that, you know, I think words hurt, words word words hurt. And, you know, I think some people are not as cautious with what they say or how they think or where that's coming from. But I definitely do think that people have their own opinions and should have their own opinions. But maybe some of those opinions are rooted in false information.
Yeah, that's true.
Which is dangerous. We're talking about danger, right? In the previous topic. Those false opinions or narratives not based on fact is very dangerous.
Just like with the pandemic too. People who their opinions are that the pandemic is over, or that COVID isn't real. Like, those are very, in my opinion, very dangerous opinions to have. And it's led to a lot of people choosing to not follow certain regulations, like not wearing a mask, even though they're required in certain spaces, although they're not anymore. But I don't know, it's just led to a lot of lives being lost that could have been prevented.
All right. So next question, are there times or situations where it is not okay to insert your opinion? We kind of talked about that a little bit, but
yes, when you know nothing about it.
Wait, what'd you say?
I said yes. I feel like if you don't really know too much about a topic, like if you're not educated on anything, don't say anything. Like, you might have an opinion, cool, but if it's not an educated opinion, sit your ass down. That's just how I feel.
Okay.
That's my opinion.
That's your opinion. We respect opinions here.
Yeah, I mean, Jasmin has a point. This is where I was talking about earlier about emotional intelligence, right? And like emotional intelligence, and that's kind of the piece of education too, of when to insert your opinion or not. I don't think it's appropriate, for example, at a funeral. Like, I'm not gonna insert my opinion about this person's life at a funeral. They've passed away, right? That's just not my place, and that's not the social etiquette. People could assume about the reason, for example, a funeral for someone who committed suicide, you know, like all these different things, scenarios. I can't just interject my opinion on there. It's not appropriate at that time. The family's grieving. That to me is like just a recent example that I'm thinking of. And that's the social, emotional, and intelligence, you know, that education on being able to do that. If you do it incorrectly and interject in certain spaces, I don't know, we could probably also be judging people that do that, if that makes sense. Like, who are we to say, I guess, too, as well, for those opinions, because we just talked about having, you're entitled to your opinion, but there's always a place and a time. I don't know.
Right, you can have your opinion, doesn't mean you should say it.
Right. Think
depending
before,
on the situation.
Let's think before we speak on this opinion, and at the time,
Yeah.
you know, hold back, and so that's maybe that's what I'm hearing, Jasmin, how we relate, I think, in that discussion. But yeah, that's just an example recently.
Yeah, that's valid. Michelle and I, so I want to bring this down to like a conversation between two people. So Michelle and I, we were talking about this. We've been friends for a very, very long time now. And we've built that type of relationship where we don't really have to ask each other for each other's opinions. We just kind of insert it when we see fit or where we see fit. But it doesn't always work that way depending on the relationship that you have with that person, right? you know, you could insert your opinion and the person's like, I wasn't necessarily asking you for your opinion. I just kind of want you to hear me out, which I think is also valid. So I think it also depends, like if we're bringing it down to a conversation between two people, I think it depends on the relationship you have with that person and also what is the substance of the conversation. Because I think there are certain topics that might be a little bit more sensitive depending on what that, like if it's sensitive to the person or very delicate to the person, be mindful and respectful of that. So I think it just depends, and it's very context dependent, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with that. I do think it's I agree with that, but I also, now for me personally, I feel like I'm pretty open to other people's opinions, even if they don't agree with me, and even if I didn't ask for it. I think I'm just in that state of life where I'm open to hear what people think, just because I'm not down to policing other people. I don't want to tell people how Rebecca was saying, who am I to tell you when you should give me your opinion or not? Who am I to tell you what to think or not to think?
Right.
And I do think that everyone should have critical thinking, should make up their own mind, should have their own opinions. And I really would want, like, am open to that. So I'm not down for policing people. I'm also, I know people mention the word education and like educated opinion. I also, that can be a little elitist in my opinion, because like what is an educated opinion and what isn't, because I think that can also be like through experience too. And like, again, going back to like, who am I to tell you like that you're not educated enough to have an opinion on this? Like, that's just where I'm coming from. But personally for me, like, I'm pretty open to people like telling me what they think, whether I agree or don't agree with it.
What if someone is telling you something about themselves and they're asking you like not to give an opinion, just to hear them out? Would that be considered like policing or like, I don't know. What are your thoughts on that, Michelle?
I think it depends on how they say it to me. I think it can be harmful and hurtful if someone's just like, oh, you don't care about what I think, like, but you're telling me about you. And especially like just coming back to like thinking about our friendship beings, where we've been friends for a long time, we don't necessarily ask each other like, what is your advice, or we kind of just give it to each other. I know you and I know where you're coming from and the space that you're coming from and the place that you're coming from, so I know whatever your advice you're going to give me, even if I didn't ask for it, is still coming from a good place. Even though I didn't ask you, maybe I didn't, like, I would not like shut you down or anything like that. Or in general, I just wouldn't do that to people, unless maybe you I mean, if someone did tell me they don't want to hear my opinion, obviously I'll respect it. But at the same time, like, if it did hurt my feelings for them saying that to me, I'll probably just like not say whatever I have to say. And then maybe later be like, I thought it was really hurtful that you said it in this way, or like, but I do understand that in certain situations, you shouldn't give your opinion, like, especially like with Rebecca said, like at a funeral or stuff like that. Like, there's certain things that I think that, and you just have to feel it, you know? I feel like there's no like this one time, never say your opinion, or you know what I mean? I just feel like it depends, like you said, on the situation, on the person, on what is happening, on the context. So I can't, like, I don't know. I mean, if someone really does tell me they don't want to hear my opinion, I'll probably be like, okay, that's fine. And maybe I don't find it hurtful, but maybe with other people I might. Like with my sisters or something, you know what I mean? I think it just depends. Because sometimes if someone really doesn't want to hear my opinion, I'll be like, okay, cool, that's fine.
Yeah.
That'll be it. I think it just depends for me. But what do y'all think? Like, if someone were like, if you were talking to someone and then they're like I wasn't asking for your opinion,
I'd be like,
you'd be hurt.
What? No. I'd be like, oh, okay, sorry. My bad for trying to be a friend.
Well, okay, but is it also, because I think it's also valid if someone is asking you to just like hold space for them, right? I think that's also okay, right? And they're not necessarily saying that your opinion, well, I guess it depends, and you would know the person and their intentions, right? But like if someone close to me is like, or like Rebe or Jasmin or you, Michelle, you'd be like, I just need you to hear me out, I want to vent a little bit, is that okay? And then if I'm okay with that, you know, I hold space for you and I will not insert an opinion. And then I can ask you, would you like me to give you my opinion? Or, you know, like, what would you want from me right now? Right. And I think that's also conversations that people don't normally have. It's not very common to hear that or to do that. But I think it's something that would be good to be mindful of. And I think that's also as a respect to both of y'all. Like, I just need you to hold space for me, or, you know, I'm here to hold space for you. And whenever you want to hear my opinion, I'll be there to give it to you, you know?
Yeah. I understand where Michelle is coming from, where like, okay, you're in a conversation and you're giving them their opinion, and then they're like, oh, well, I didn't ask for your opinion. I understand how that is hurtful.
Yes.
But that would be on the other person's like part to say, hey, I just want to, like you said, babe, I just want to come to you and I want to vent.
Yeah.
I just want to pour out into you. I want to vent. And I understand when people do that. And I feel like we do that. You and me, babe, like, I'm like, babe, I just hear me out.
Yeah, you have
like,
told me
I don't want to hear
nothing
you gotta say. Just listen to everything.
Because I have inserted my opinion before, right? Yeah. And I guess that also, like, sorry, go ahead. Let me finish. I was interrupting you.
Thanks, babe. And
sorry.
So I also do that with my sister, because like me and my sister, we talk a lot, and she just talks, and I'm like, hold on, like before. Because she doesn't tell me, she'll just be like, girl, you won't believe what happened, right? And so I'll be like, okay, what happened? So before I give an opinion, I'm like, hey, are you just trying to, like, did you just want me to hear you out, or did you want me to tell you what I thought? So that way I'm not offended, and she's not like, oh girl, you always got something to say. You know what I mean? Because, well, that's how me and my sister talk, but that's probably also how people think, like, damn, you always got something to say. You can't just hear me out. But at the end of the day, it's also on them to advocate for themselves and be like, hey, I just want to talk to you. I don't want feedback. I just kind of want to vent to you. And also, I feel like if someone says that to you, like, hey, I just want to vent, are you available? That's respecting that other person. Because sometimes like, you've had a shitty day and they're like, girl, I got to tell you what happened. You're like, girl, I don't got time for that. Like, I just had the most shittiest day. Like, you want to hear about my day? And I feel a lot of people don't have, like what you were saying about emotional intelligence. And I feel that that's also a fairly new thing with people asking, hey, do you have space for me to vent? And a lot of people don't do that. It's also awkward too. It's kind of like, hey, can you hear me talk shit? And, you know, sometimes it's like, it's a negative vibe. And a lot of times people don't want to put yourselves in a negative vibe, but we're human. So I feel like if you ask someone first, hey, I have something to say, I want to vent. Are you open to that? Are you available? Cool, yes. Also, I just want to talk. I don't really want your opinion. Maybe tomorrow I want your opinion, but today I just got to let everything out. You know, I feel like having that conversation and advocating for yourself, but with compassion. You don't have to tell them like, yo, I don't want to hear shit you got to say. Because that's hurtful. Like, you know, Rebeca and Michelle was saying, that's hurtful as fuck when someone's like, I didn't ask for your fucking opinion. I'm like, well, damn, why the fuck are we friends? You know? I think it's just the way you say it and advocating for yourself, yes, but also doing it in a loving tone so that they know that you still care for them. But at the same time, you got to just hold space for yourself.
Yeah.
Are you finding, and this goes for everyone, are you finding that you may insert your opinion closer to the people that you love or care about over like professional settings? Like, I would never have the audacity to like talk about certain things and give my opinion outside of like my professional opinion, right? But like other stuff are off limits too. I find myself more vocal with the people that I love and have close relationships with, but also being an active listener too to what they have to say or what they're bringing to the table. I don't find myself asking like, is it okay if I vent to you? I sometimes just tell Cinthya, and I need to probably do a better job about that too, right? But yeah, I find myself being more comfortable giving my opinion to the people that I love and have been around and may know me, versus in that professional setting when it's not a professional opinion, or, you know, whatever it may be, a different setting. I find that more trust in being able to give opinions, although maybe not warranted, but it could be also my horoscope. I mean, like, we're Gemini, so I tie that to like,
I didn't know you over both.
You know, like people present themselves differently or have, you know, approach. Some horoscopes are stronger than others on their opinions. So that could be tied to, but just naturally, I'm not like inserting my opinions like that.
Same.
Okay. Yeah, I think it. So, I think that we all develop within the context of relationships. Okay, that's like my philosophy. It's not what I live by.
I'm gonna write a book about it.
Relationship year.
Write a book.
Huh?
What do you read? Maxwell Goldwyn?
Malcolm Gladwell.
There you go.
A lot about like the human stuff. But like, okay, so the relationships that I've had growing up are, like my friends and my family, and just like you, Rebe, I'm more inclined to ask for or accept, right, or I'm open to opinions by my loved ones, and I'm also more inclined to insert my opinion to my loved ones, right? And so sometimes we generalize that. I do this sometimes. Sorry, there's a motorcycle, like super loud as fuck. Anyway, sometimes I forget. I'm like, okay, this is a different person, and I can't just assume that just because we are close or whatnot, that it's going to be the same thing as what I do with my siblings, right? So you develop this like model of what you can do in certain relationships, and sometimes we carry that into other relationships when it's not necessarily appropriate, or you shouldn't, or because I think it really does depend. It's very individualized by context, by relationship, by topic, situation, whatever. Does that make sense? Yeah. And in the workplace too, like I'm also a little bit more reserved when it comes to my opinions. But also it depends, like this job is very different for me in the sense that my boss will ask me for my opinion genuinely, like, what are your thoughts about this? And he really wants to hear me out. And I don't think we get that a lot in the workplace.
Or not at all. I feel like you're a rare breed.
Right.
They don't ever ask you for your opinion. They just tell you it and that's it. You either like it or you quit. So I feel like you are super lucky in that sense that you have a boss like that. You're super blessed.
Hashtag blessed. Okay, another question. Let's say you are the one. Gosh, did y'all hear that? Another.
Yeah. Hey, zooming by.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So annoying.
Jeez Louise.
They gotta take us on a ride.
Yeah. So has your initial response to like when someone comes to you to talk to you about something, is your initial response to listen or to like react or respond in some way, and has it changed? I know we talked about asking like, are you available, but let's say you're on the other end of it where you are being asked to listen or whatnot, right? You're being approached by someone to talk about something. What's your initial response, and has that changed?
Well, my initial response, back before I had zero emotional intelligence. I would just say whatever the hell was on my mind and you liked it or not, and that was that. But now that I've actually learned what the hell emotional intelligence is and how valuable it is, when I'm talking to someone and they want to vent to me, for the most part, I'm human, and sometimes I'm like, girl, you need to dump that, or I just tell them what's on my mind. But for the most part, I like to be like, just so that I know, and that I know how to respond, especially with my sister, because we talk a lot. I was like, hey, do you want to hear my opinion or do you not? Because she's married, I'm not. So I don't want to insert my opinion about what's it like to be married, what's it like to have kids, when I don't have any of that. So I want to know if my opinion is even going to be valid before I even give it. So I ask her, and sometimes she'll be like, yeah, I do. Sometimes she'll be like, no, I just want to talk. I'm like, okay, cool. So sometimes I ask, sometimes I don't. But for the most part, I try to consciously, I think that's the word. I try to ask, but sometimes, I just forget, because when you heated, you heated. And when you got opinions, sometimes you got to say it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, I try to ask, but I'm not 100% like, oh, I'll ask everyone. And sometimes I also don't, like, I'm like, some people just tell me things and I'm like, why are you telling me this? I don't even know you. Like I be on the street and people tell me their problems and I'm like, girl, who are you?
Like Mean Girls, she doesn't even go here.
Yeah, like it's hilarious.
Exactly. So
that's how go here
sometimes.
Why are you talking to me?
Yeah, I don't even go here.
So that just happens, and sometimes I'm like, oh girl, you need to bounce. Girl, you deserve better. And
like the person,
I don't know them. Yeah, and I don't know them from fucking Jenny from the block, you know? But
Jenny, person sitting next to you on the bus or sitting next to you on the airplane, just telling you their like life story.
Yeah.
Like our neighbor.
Oh my gosh, yes, that's another thing. What about you, Rebe?
Yeah.
Let me know.
So I would say I'm a listener. And though I would say as I've gotten older, I know how to respond differently, if that makes sense, to certain opinions, or like I have the personality or the type to like coach or ask like follow-up questions to someone's opinion. I'm not trying to get them to change their mind, but I'm trying to get them to think about it maybe in a different light. For example, last weekend, I spoke to my grandmother, catching up, see how she's doing. Again, very conservative household. I grew up in a liberal household, right? And so there's, she has opinions or perspectives, love her, respect her, 100%, hardest working woman I know. Since she was 14 on the farm, right? I'm just saying like, she's so hardworking. But I have different opinions on my grandma. And so she may overtly tell me her opinion about, for example, divorce. She doesn't believe in divorce, come from a very religious background. And I'm trying to tell her, I'm not trying to tell her my opinion, right? But I'm saying, well, think about it this way. Would you be in a unhappy, unhealthy relationship for 60 years just because you believe that you shouldn't get divorced? No, that's not how you live your life, right? But I'm like trying to tell her like, well, think about it this way. As long as the kids are happy, just like not changing, but having her think differently. And she may have been more receptive coming from me, right? But I'm not inserting my opinion. I'm just, I'm phrasing it a little bit differently. Because I know she probably has to grapple with it or like get accustomed to it too. Like, oh, your granddaughter, is like talking to you about it. But it's not even, we didn't even go into like other political things, but it was just like the concept of being divorced and like coming from a Christian household, and you come from a marriage of like 62 plus years, and then a family member is getting a divorce. And so not my family, but an extended family member within our group. It was just so interesting to hear her opinion. And so like I'm receiving it, I'm actively listening, and I'm also like putting it back on her to give different perspectives. Well, we will never know like why that family chose to do that or why that relationship is like, only they will know, only the kids will know. They have to be, I wouldn't want to live in an unhappy relationship or marriage. Like that's my opinion, but I'm trying to like coach her through that, right? And fundamentally it is a religious thing for my grandma, but just like that's how I would approach it, or how I have been able to approach it or talk about things differently, particularly religion or race or politics with different family members. It's just listening and then kind of responding cautiously, asking follow-up questions to help them get them to what I'm trying to tell them, essentially.
Yeah.
But hopefully not sugarcoating things. Like I don't want to sugarcoat things, but I also want to be respectful. Like that's my elder, like that's my grandma, like I'm not going to disrespect her. I'm going to be kind in my opinion, and I don't believe the same thing she does, but I'm going to try to coach her through maybe a different perspective. So
that's like reflective questioning.
Yeah,
like you respond with questions.
Nice.
What about you? Yeah, you go first. I'll go after.
What do I do? If someone approaches me, I listen. I just listen. And then I think for me, it just depends on who I'm talking to, on how I'm going to respond. I think, I kind of just tailor how I respond depending on who I'm talking to and what they're talking to me about. But I feel like when I was younger, I might have inserted my opinions more than what I do now. And how Rebecca was talking about, like the way I respond, how I respond has changed. I think about things a lot more now than when I used to. Not that I like was disrespectful or anything. I think But I feel like with certain people, I can easily have a conversation with someone and we'll both be able to give our opinions. But I also am a person who, if I kind of don't agree with your opinion, I'll ask certain questions of like, why do you think that? Like, did you think about it in this way? Or like stuff like that. But yeah, I don't think it really just depends with me on who I'm talking with and about and where I'm at and all these other things.
Yeah. For me, it depends too. In general, though, I've never been super outspoken. And Michelle, you've challenged me a lot in this part where you've kind of like pried me to like give you my opinion. Because I'm generally one to be more quiet and listen. I'm much more of a listener, and I will validate and hear them out and hold space, right? But I have gotten better in giving people my opinion if it is asked for and if I feel it's right and appropriate to do so. But I am also very mindful of how I do so, like what I say, how I say it. Try to like read the room, feel the vibe. Who is this person that I'm talking to? What are we talking about? Asking questions like Rebe says, and Michelle too. Like I try to be really mindful and respectful. And if I disagree, I try to disagree respectfully. And because I can't do conflict, y'all. I really don't. I'm so uncomfortable with conflict. So even disagreeing on things sometimes is uncomfortable for me, but that's part of life. Like, we're not going to agree on everything. And that doesn't mean that we can't be friends. This doesn't mean that we can't have a healthy relationship. In fact, I think that's important. And to have a healthy relationship is to know when you disagree with someone and feeling safe enough to let them know, hey, I hear you, but this is how I see it, and holding space for each other. But I'm doing better in all of that. Yeah, in general, I don't know. I feel like me and Rebe are really similar in that we're more like a little bit more quieter,
We're very passive.
That's why I always ask you questions, Beans. At least that's what I try to do. When I know someone isn't as like vocal about certain things, like I purposely go out of my way to ask them, because I just think it's important for everyone to voice their opinion. And I know sometimes people are like, oh, I wasn't asked, so maybe I shouldn't say anything. So maybe I'll ask that person. That way they feel comfortable saying whatever they have to say. But yeah, I always think, that's why I'm glad you're working on that.
That's great, Michelle. I should work on that, because like you and I were very vocal and we're very outspoken, and sometimes I'm like, oh, you ain't got nothing to say. That means to me, like how I
didn't say that.
No. Like, you're very vocal, but for me, it's like if someone doesn't have anything to say, I'm like, oh, they don't care, But sometimes I don't realize that. Well, no one's ever asked them, so I feel like what you have is a good trait to have, because I don't have that. Where sometimes I'm just like, okay, you're not conversating, you're not expressing your opinion. I guess you don't care about the next topic, which they might really care. They just, like Cinthia or Rebe, where they're just more like, I'm not going to insert my opinion because it's different, right? So I like your trait that you have, where you're like, well, someone's not saying anything, let me ask some questions, versus me, who's like, okay, you must not care. So I really like that you have that, and you have that awareness.
And though people might find our passive approach annoying, or just different, right? We're not confrontational, or not try to be, because I think we don't want to hurt people's feelings, maybe as empaths, but or I get like super emotional because I'm so passionate about it, and I like start crying, and like people see that as a weakness. I'm like, no, I'm not weak. I'm so upset that I'm like expressing my anger or opinion in tears, but that's just a quality that should be taken for weakness. But it could be different. Like we have different approaches.
Are one of the strongest people, because you feel things that a lot of people don't, and I'm like, damn. Y'all strong as fuck. How the fuck do you feel that? Like, you can tap into an emotion that most people can't. Well, not most people. People who aren't empaths can't tap into.
Right.
I'm like, how the hell you got that superpower?
Okay. Well, okay. And I want to like make a point to what you were saying about like, if someone doesn't share their opinion in the moment, it's like they don't care, right? For me, sometimes, depending on what we're talking about or disagreeing about, sometimes I shut down and I don't want to talk in the moment, and I would rather not give my opinion in that moment, but let me, ground myself and process, and then I will share my opinion, right? So sometimes I feel like we pressure people to give their opinions or talk about something when they are not comfortable doing so in that moment, but it doesn't mean that they don't care or that they don't want to talk about it. It's just that that's not the right time for them. I think sometimes we forget that. Even I forget that sometimes. So that's something that I wanted to bring up as well.
Okay. Let's just finish it with that one question and we can go fast.
Okay.
Has anyone ever told you talk too much? That's the last question.
Nope, not me.
That us passes
told me
over here.
I don't talk enough.
Passes over here.
I haven't gotten that either, but I have gotten that I ask too many questions.
Really?
Yeah. I'm not known as a talker, but I know I'm a person who asks a lot of questions.
Interesting.
And I've been told I ask a lot of questions since I was a child, but I'm not a super talkative person, I would say.
Have they told you that in like as a compliment, or like this is not a good trait?
In both.
Okay.
I think, I mean, as a child, I was always just like, oh, ¿y por qué esto? And why, how is that? ¿Por qué? Like, why are people, like, why do you sleep together? And like, why, like, I was that child that always just asked questions, but I never really talked out of like, obviously we're both raised like Mexican with like, like se habla cuando se habla in a respectful manner, obviously. So I very much followed that. Sometimes I spoke out of turn, whatever, right? But usually I wasn't very talkative compared to my other sisters. But I would ask a lot of questions all the time, maybe some inappropriate questions, but then I wouldn't like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But then sometimes it was also very encouraged by my mom. And that's how I became a critical thinker, I think, is because I asked questions, even if I, maybe wasn't appropriate. But in terms of talking too much, I didn't get that.
You were inquisitive. I'll say that.
Aw, thanks. My mom would call me annoying sometimes, but yeah. Eso no se pregunta.
Oh my gosh.
That was me.
Eso no.
Eso no se dice.
No se dice. No.
All right, Jasmine, what about you?
No, I never got that I talk too much. I just got that, like, when I talk, I say what's on my mind unfiltered. And a lot of people see that as an attitude. It's not an attitude. It's just, you ask me a question, I'm going to answer you honestly. Right. But also, as I'm growing, I understand that you can answer a question honestly, but you can also have compassion. Because before I would be like, nope, this is this and this is that, and that's it. But now as I'm getting older, I'm like, no, I have to think about what I'm saying and think about, like, yes, if they're asking me a question, or if they're, if I have to respond, I'll respond. Yeah. But I could just do it with compassion and love versus saying, this is this is that. And that just stops a lot of conflict and also a lot of misunderstanding, because I would just say like what's on my mind and people are like, oh, you got an attitude. And I'm like, no, I don't. You just asked me a question. I'm saying what's on my mind. Like, what the fuck? It's blunt, and people always set that as an attitude, and it was never an attitude. I rarely had an attitude. I was always just saying what was exactly on my mind, but because I just said it with like, I don't know, I guess a tone that was very like hard, people would always say you have a very bad attitude. But I really, like, everything I said was with love. It just I didn't know how to express it. So, yeah.
That's valid. I feel like we all have different temperaments, different ways of communicating, and differing opinions. Yeah. And I think we all should keep that in mind, right? That like there's 4 of us here, but there's millions of people out there that also have different ways of sharing their opinions, different ways to say things. And you're right. I mean, it's about compassion and holding space and like hearing each other out respectfully, and it's okay to disagree on things.
Yeah. And also being self-aware.
Yes,
I think it's super important to be self-aware.
Very much so.
All right. I commend everybody for being self-aware and how they present their opinions. This is good discussion.
It's hard.
Yeah, it is hard, but we keep learning and we keep growing.
Yeah. One thing one thing that I've learned, you know, as if someone else is out there listening that is kind of like me, who just says what's on their mind and is not very pleasant in what they say. I understand. I just want to let you know it's okay. You just have to forgive yourself and let it go, but just learn from that. And obviously, like, because I used to think about that and I'm like, oh my God, I'm such a fucking horrible person. They like something that happened fucking in 2017, I would think about it and it would be in my brain. I'm like, oh my God, they think I'm the worst person ever. And then I'm like, well, wait a minute. Just because I said that, like, people aren't really thinking about what you said. They're thinking about how you made them feel. So just think about how you're going to make someone feel. And if you don't want to make that person feel that way, change the way you would say something.
Right.
That's kind of what I've learned as I'm growing up and gaining emotional intelligence, is you have to, obviously, like, your opinion matters, but at the same time, think about how your opinion comes across to people and whether or not, like, yeah, your opinion matters, but if you're going to say it with an attitude, no one's going to accept it. You know, no one's going to receive it well. So say what you have to say, but just realize that what you have to say is important, but also know that you can say it with love. You don't have to say it as is, and tones are very important. And I never realized that until recently.
It's something we take for granted, like reading social cues and facial expressions and tones and all that kind of stuff. But it's important to also consider that when you're giving an opinion or hearing an opinion.
Yep.
We want to thank y'all for coming to join us. We have less than a minute left, so we'll make it quick. But thank you for coming, for joining us. We hope to have you back.
Yep.
Everyone listening, thank you so much. Thank you for tuning in, and we will catch you at the next one.
See ya. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.